We had, what, 4 governors now in 40 years that's going to be doing prison time? I speak in other states and people laugh at Illinois. They really do. They think it's a joke of how blatant the politics are, how unjust the system is. So I don't believe in the system anymore. I believe in the good people that try to correct it. Because all these men on this wall here suffered for decades upon decades. I look in their eyes, and the same eyes I see when I get in the mirror every morning and shave. It's the torture and the pain that they suffered. And the only thing we can do to better this system that I can see, and I truly believe, is instead of having police officers interview witnesses, canvass the neighborhood, meet them in bars, and months later write reports, I believe there ought to be a new law in place to where the defense lawyers should have access to all police officers' notes, their work product, the very initial interview with a witness. Not like it's typed up weeks, months later, in its original form. Why do they fight so hard not to give you that work product, privilege? Why do they demand to have absolute and qualified immunity? Why is that? If they're all about justice. It's not about justice, it's about winning for these people. They want that public perception that they're out there protecting the streets. Not all of them. I've met a few good police officers. I know they're out there. I haven't met any good prosecutors yet, because they're all about winning in the state of Illinois. But why is that? Why must they have that immunity? Why won't they give us those initial police reports so you can actually see what the witnesses said? Because without that, it's torture. They torture and execute people in this country, and 34 more states are still doing it. This is not the America that I believed in. Look at their eyes. Look at every one of them. They don't believe in it either, because it happened to them also. The best thing we can possibly do is fix the Illinois justice system. Don't worry about the feds. Don't worry about the other states. Try to enact new legislation to where these prosecutors don't have absolute immunity for what they do. The police officers don't have qualified immunity. And they turn over their initial work product. Because I did 6,305 days, a little over 17 years, for something I didn't do. I lost every state appeal I had. If it had not been for a federal judge, had not been for my post-conviction attorney, Mike Metney, had not been for the Center on Wrongful Convictions, had not been for an honest state police officer, Mike Callahan, who stood up in the face of adversity, his own command, who told him he can't reopen a Rhodes case because this case is too politically sensitive. This is after I lost all my appeals. And he asked him, since when is murder too politically sensitive? You see, there's a price to be paid for being a whistleblower in this country. When Herb Whitlock and myself went to that FBI and reported that prosecutor, that put us in his crosshairs. And it was almost like he knew Dyke and Karen Rose were going to be murdered. Because almost immediately we became suspects in a small town. Almost immediately the police were canvassing neighborhoods, talking to people, pointing to Whitlock and Steidl. We didn't have a chance. But I think we can do better in the future in Illinois. I know there's other Randy Steidl sitting there in jail cells right now, in prison cells, that don't have a voice. I was one of them. I understood it, but now I do. And most of the public are naive like I was once. They don't believe things like this can happen. Honest mistakes can happen. Honest mistakes get corrected. But when there's power, corruption, and influence involved, it gets covered up all the way to the top. That's why I don't believe in the justice system in Illinois anymore, because I know what they can do and what they can get by with. Thank you very much.
We're happy to take some questions, and if you ask one of Randy or of me, I'll repeat it so that everyone can hear it. Any questions? Yes?
In Randy's case, who was actually guilty of the crime?
In Randy's case, who was actually guilty of the crime?
I believe the police and the prosecutor and the state of Illinois knew and knows today who was responsible for Dyke and Rhodes murders. But that's why my case is too politically sensitive.
Thank you.
Yes?
So now that you've been out, what are you doing? How have you changed your life and tried to change others?
So now that you've been out, what are you doing? How have you changed your life and tried to change others?
Well, when I got out, I went to work out of state in Missouri, and I actually got a call from an executive director in Philadelphia, Witness to Innocence. Sister Helen Prejean was the brainchild of this organization. This man, Ray Crone, down here with the hat on backwards, is the communications director. And after about a year of being out, I walked into the first gathering and saw 19 other death row inmates that were exonerated. And I saw that look in their eyes, every one of them. I felt their pain. I understood where they'd been. And that's why I'm vice chair of the board of directors of Witness to Innocence. I've been with them for going on 6 years, because it's something I believe the public needs educated on, and laws need to be changed.
Yes.
Have you experienced anybody from the justice system that convicted you, trying to, I don't know, stop you from giving these speeches at all, or pull you from talking to people about what happened?
Has anyone in the justice system who is responsible for convicting you, or anyone else in the justice system, tried to stop you from speaking out, coming to events like this?
No, I've never had any. I speak the truth. And evidently that's why they don't try to stop me, because they know it's the truth.
Yes.
Is there any consequences for the prosecutors in wrongful convictions?
Are there any consequences for the prosecutors? I'll answer that question. The short answer is no. People want to know why. It's the doctrine of sovereign immunity. We brought this over from England. You can only sue the sovereign under the circumstances that the sovereign has agreed to be sued. We have a Federal Civil Rights Act that actually authorizes suits against the police for violations of your civil rights. This was enacted in 1865, right after the Civil War, and not used actually in these kinds of cases until fairly late in the 20th century. But the government has never given permission to sue a prosecutor. So they have almost total immunity. There are exceptions if they've abandoned their role as a prosecutor and actually participated in the investigation of the case. There are some who have been held liable for that. But for the most part, prosecutors are immune from civil damages. Yes?
I can't help but notice that you have a lot of emotion in you, and I hope I don't stir anymore, but have you received any apology from anybody involved in this situation?
Have you received any apologies from anybody who was involved in your wrongful conviction?
Nobody that's involved in my wrongful conviction. I've had common people, the public, come up and apologize for the state of Illinois, which is very heart-rending, means a lot. If only the state of Illinois would do that.
Yes.
So how do you in fact foment systemic change?
So how do you in fact bring about systemic change?
Yes.
Well, I guess I could tell you what J. Paul Getty once said about how you become a millionaire. You get up early, you work hard, and you strike oil. Now, that's essentially what happened in Illinois. And there are a lot of people who have been involved who worked awfully hard. And if it hadn't been for that hard work, it couldn't have happened, because we had to have the ammunition when we got the opportunity. So if we hadn't put in all that hard work, it wouldn't have happened. But the hard work alone wasn't enough. It took a lot of luck. And while we have a governor who is now sitting in prison, who did the right thing in these cases, I'm talking about George Ryan. If it hadn't been for George Ryan, we wouldn't have gotten this far. I'm not defending anything that George Ryan did, but I'm telling you, I'm getting up at 6:30 on Friday morning to drive down to Terre Haute to visit him. And to me, he's a veritable hero. What happened to Herb? Well, Herb got out finally, but many years after.
It took Herb 21 years to finally gain his freedom, using the same federal court opinion that I had and all the evidence of all of my attorneys, Rob and everybody worked for us for so many years. He had to go back to the state court, the circuit court, and they did it to him again, but they've done time and time again.
Where's he now?
He's finally out, he's back in Paris, been out about 3